Today on Libertas video, we work on this DIY Iron Man helmet. Welcome to Libertas Video, the channel dedicated to encouraging, entertaining, and inspiring you through costume and prop builds and reviews. Now, of course, everything we're going to be talking about in this video will be linked in the description below. Of course, some of those are affiliate links, so if you use them, they'll help us out at no extra cost to you. There's also links to our Instagram where you can check out future projects that we are working on, get a little sneak peek before we make videos on them. And of course, if this video is helpful to you, like and subscribe. Now, there is some history to this helmet itself. It's not actually for me. Our boss is having a milestone birthday this year, and Lauren's idea was to throw a superhero themed birthday party. So he's a huge fan of comics, and we know he really likes Iron Man, so I thought it'd be awesome to gift him with an Iron Man helmet and also test a new project out. So this video will kind of serve as a documentary of how we built this helmet, and also hopefully will inspire you to get out and do something similar. So let's jump right into it. So I actually found this template on YouTube. I'm going to link to the content creator's channel in the description below. He does a really good job with cosplay for superheroes, both DC and Marvel. So if you're interested in this helmet template, definitely go check that out, and you can download the PDF there. I attempted to make the Mark III helmet initially, and it turned out a little too small. I couldn't put it on my head, and I knew if that was a problem for me, it was going to be a problem for my boss as well. So I went ahead and made this helmet, which is based off the Spider-Man Homecoming helmet that Tony Stark uses in that movie. I knew I needed to scale it up to about 110%. So that's what I did, and it worked out a lot better for me. What I initially did was transfer the helmet template onto 5mm foam. That was the recommended foam type. I've tested out other, like the 9mm yoga mat and also 3mm. One was too thin, the other one's way too thick. So 5mm is a really good, size range, so I would definitely recommend that. When I transferred it to the foam, I used a silver Sharpie marker to draw out all the template or all the designs, and I actually put in every single registration mark and all the notes, so I knew exactly which way I was going to need to cut it, and also helped tremendously throughout the gluing process, so I remembered exactly what I should be gluing together. So with gluing the whole project together, I tried something new this time. Instead of using the brush that was included with the barge cement, I used this squeeze bottle that I picked up at the local grocery store. You can put like ketchup or any condiment in it that you want, but hey, we put contact cement in there, and it helped tremendously keep everything clean without making a huge mess, which the brush can do. So I would highly recommend doing it this way as well, and I think it actually helped me save on a lot of glue. I wasn't using excessive amounts. So use that, put everything together initially, and when I was done, I had the template kind of put together as it was described. Now there are a few things that you want to do, like all the accent details that were put in initially that I had carved in with the X-Acto knife. When you heat form it, so that's putting the heat gun over the foam, it will shrink up the cells of the EVA foam and will actually bring out a lot of those details because everything's shrinking up. It helps seal the foam as well. But of course, when you're doing this whole process, what you can do is kind of heat form it. So add a little bit of the bevels into like the actual face shield, which is super helpful, and kind of get that more organic look rather than this really flat thing that you have right when you're done gluing. Additionally, it helped me decide what I wanted to do next, and this is really where I deviated from the template process. Now, the content creator with the cheek guards had used mesh. That's what they ended up using at the end, which looks cool, but I didn't really want to go with that route, seeing as I was taking a little bit more inspiration from the Civil War helmet. So I wanted to add these jet fins in, and the content creator, when they put the template together, they kind of have these blobs that go on the side, and it's meant to break up the relatively flat, undetailed helmet. But I wanted to go with those jet fins. I think they look a lot cooler and a little bit more aggressive, so that's what I went with. The back piece was the exact same from the template, but I also carved in a whole bunch of designs that I found just from referencing the Civil War helmet. And I think that was really cool. And so then I also add those details into the cheek. Now, I then had to jump back and glue those back onto the helmet. So I kind of did a second round of gluing using the contact cement again. But, everything lined up perfectly. And I think it looks really cool as the base helmet. So that would be an encouragement to use. If you're not really happy with the template, don't feel like you have to follow it to the T. Definitely go out and make it better. I simply just took the piece of paper that the template was built on, drew my own templates, and voila, I have my own helmet, or at least distinguished helmet. So there are a lot more lines and details in there that, once again, we're going to have to heat form, so being careful not to undo all the work I did before. But once again, it draws out all those lines so that they are there. So I think it looks really, really cool. One of the other things that I knew I wanted to do was make this helmet battle damaged. So I took a silver and then a gold Sharpie marker and drew in all the lines where I knew I wanted to carve into the helmet to make it look like this thing is fresh out of a battle. And of course, doing that, I used my Dremel. I used some bits. The best one that I found was kind of the cylinder-shaped one. And for some more of the dings, I used something that's a little more beveled. But you just need to kind of test them out and see which one works the best. Some of them don't do a good job of chewing through the EVA foam, and some are way too abrasive. So kind of finding that happy medium, and I kind of focused in on that cylinder one. I think it gave me the best results for this helmet. And then heat sealed it one more time. Blasted those, because every single time you're carving into the EVA foam or sanding it or doing something with a Dremel, you're once again exposing the raw EVA foam, and it should be sealed up before continuing forward. But then we needed to prime it for painting. Usually what I do is use Plasti Dip. I was running low and I wanted to try something new, so I used Flex Bond. Now, Flex Bond was originally developed, I believe, as an adhesive, but a lot of people found that you can use it really well for sealing EVA foam or even smoothing out Worbla. So I was pretty excited to test this out because it's non-toxic. I can just paint it in the house without any issue. So bought it, had it shipped in, and I did 2 passes. Now I think I can learn a little bit more from this entire process because I put it on too heavy and ended up getting some of these brush strokes. I think if I was going back, what I would attempt to do is do the same first layer, nice and thick, but the second one I would water down a little bit and help it get a little bit more even consistency, help it to level a little bit more. Nevertheless, I think some of these brush strokes would really help that battle damage design, so it's not a huge deal. It wasn't a deal killer for this project, so continuing on with it, I think when I do all the distressing, it's really going to help add in some of that cool detail. So with everything primed up, I gave it the full 24 hours. I was really excited to get to the painting, but I think the 24 hours was the perfect time to wait. The Flex Bond wasn't tacky anymore, so I was able to paint right on top of it. And of course, used 2 red colors. We ran over to Hobby Lobby and found these. I mean, we did extensive search to try to find these red colors, but we did the base coat with this more like maroonish red, and I did 2 coats. Some people I've seen mask off the helmet. I knew that I was just gonna, be painting in. I would be really, really careful. So I didn't bother with the whole masking off. You can if you want to. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. But once the base red coat had dried, I went back with this metallic red, which kind of gives this interesting iridescent feel to it. It's not necessarily like the color's changing, but it does sell that metallic feel. So using the 2 colors together, I think really, really helped. And especially having that base coat, which was the cheaper paint, then to apply the top coat, you're not wasting as much material. So that's my recommendation. And then I went in and did the faceplate. Now, I've done the similar technique with the Alexios helmet, again, going for that more bronzy gold look. So I put down the base layer of bronze, once again with the cheaper paint, and then I went over with the heavy body gold. Now the problem with the gold is it can be so, the idea of the heavy body is that it will give you pretty quick coverage, but it can be overpowering sometimes. And so what I'll do is, before that paint has dried up, I'll start putting on even another layer of the bronze, mixing it in here and there to really give it that worn look. You could go straight with the gold and probably be fine if that's what you're going for, like that pristine brand new look. But I think adding the bronze in, it's thin enough that it mixes so well to give you that coppery like gold look, which I think looks really, really cool. So I just kind of went back and forth until I was happy with what I had come up with. Then once that had dried, I went back with the silver. Now I used a very fine brush for the silver, knowing that I needed to get those lines perfect because I didn't want to screw up the paint after that. But I did 2 layers of that silver paint with the heavy body silver on the cheek and then also beneath where the fins were going to be. And then I had to go in and actually paint in what I'm going to call the scarring on the helmet, so make it look like the paint that had originally been there had been ripped away and there's this silver underneath. Now, of course, when you look at it directly after done being painted, it's like, well, it's not all that exciting. And that's where we get to the really cool parts. So before moving on to the weathering, the really good idea is to seal it once more with a clear coat. And because this is an Iron Man helmet, we want it to look glossy, and have that metallic look. So I hit it with a gloss varnish, and I just had to do 1 pass. I didn't go crazy with this, and I think it looked really, really good. Of course, you have to let it dry. There's a lot of waiting for the thing to dry in between. But once that clear coat was down, I'm free to do the distressing. Now, one of the things that the clear coat's going to do is going to protect the other paint from beneath it from being lifted up by this new acrylic paint. And 2, it's going to give it that cool glossy look. So going into the weathering process, what I do is I take some nice thick black paint, mix it up with a little bit of water, and then just paint right on top of the helmet. And then you wipe away with a wet paper towel, and it leaves some of that black in the recessed area. So all the details that I had carved in initially, all the scarring, it catches all that black, everything where other pieces meet together. It gets that really cool detail. And even within all those brush strokes that had occurred from my less than stellar job of sealing the EVA foam initially, it captures in there, makes us look really weathered, really cool. So very, very exciting process. My only recommendation would be do it light and build up where you need to. And within some of the scarring, I did 3 passes on that just to get the look that I was going for. So don't try to rush it all at once. This is a really cool portion of like any build because it really brings in that character. So with the weathering done, it was time to move on to the eyes of the helmet. There are plenty of ways to do this. You just have to check online. But what I ended up doing was using plexiglass. I just cut them into small little rectangles, then heat formed them into a slight curve and tossed a privacy vinyl on top of that. Privacy vinyl is just something that is like in the automotive realm for cars and stuff. What this allows you to do is see out of the helmet without people seeing it. So that's what I used. Really like the look of it too, just with the vinyl glossiness. Mixes well with the plexiglass. I then decided I wanted to light up the eyes as well. Now, this was the first time I really dove into wiring anything, and so first time soldering. So this was a whole new experience for me. Essentially what we did is went out and bought really cheap LED flashlights from the dollar store, tore them apart, and essentially wired up each individual light in sequence with a switch that was pulled out of an old Chinese lantern, LED lantern, that was also from the dollar store that our coworker had given us. So yeah, that's how I wired mine up. What I would recommend to anyone else and what I would personally do going forward in the future is to buy one of those rope lights. They come on spindles. I think they're pretty powerful LEDs, and you can cut them into sections, predefined segments. I think what that would do is allow you to have or reduce the amount of wiring that you typically have to do instead of having to go one LED to the next, to the next. It just gets really tedious. Help keep everything nice and clean inside the helmet. Also, if you can buy one that is already pre-attached to a battery pack, you don't have to worry about voltage and all that stuff. So that would be my recommendation. But going back to what I did, after everything was wired, I glued in the eyes themselves into the inside of the helmet, then glued each individual LED light after it was pre-wired, and ran the wiring back to the back of the helmet, created a small little case for the 9-volt battery to sit into out of gun case foam, which I think worked out really well. It sits perfectly in the back. And then the switch also sits right next to that padding, so you can turn on the LED lights and turn them off pretty quickly. So in the end, I am really, really pleased with how this Iron Man helmet has turned out. It is more inspired, it's not screen accurate to anything in particular, but I absolutely love the look of it, and I really hope our boss gets a kick out of it as a gift for his birthday. Once again, all of the links to everything we talked about, the stuff that was built, the templates, everything's gonna be in the description below. So definitely check those out if you're into making Iron Man helmets. Also, if this video was helpful to you, consider giving it a thumbs up to help other people find it as well. And if you're a fan of what we're doing here, consider subscribing. That's gonna do it for this video. We'll see you on the next Libertas video.